All right, good day, ladies. Today we are starting a new lesson, lesson 5 on colonial rule. Right, so in this lesson, you should be able to, by the time we're done with this lesson, list the materials of colonial government, or excuse me, list the interests of colonial governments in the Middle East. So list their interests, understand how the colonizers controlled the Middle East, describe 3 different forms of colonial government, and give examples of colonial activities in the Middle East. So, some of the characteristics of colonial rule. Under the Ottoman rule, local rulers still kept their autonomy. And so, you can see the key word there, autonomy, freedom from outside control or power. So, they kept themselves free from outside control or anyone else being able to have power over them or control. So, under the Ottoman rule, local rulers still kept their autonomy. In some places, these rulers were almost independent. But when British or French armies invaded, or when their officials took over areas after World War I, they took away the autonomy of local leaders. Okay, so after World War I, they took away that freedom from them, from these local leaders under the Ottoman rule, right, under the Ottoman Empire. So these European officials wanted to protect their own interests of their own countries. Okay, so what they did, they expanded production of cheap raw materials needed by factories in Europe, for example, cotton, olive oil, and silk. So you remember we talked about them taking over the cotton fields in Egypt. So those were one of those things they took over, for example, cotton, olive oil, silk. They protected their investments and their trade routes. So they wanted to make sure that their trade routes were safe, that no one would attack them or destroy them. They looked after their own people. For example, the European settlers that came into French North Africa, they protected them, making sure that they were safe when they moved there. And then they used the region as a market for their manufactured goods. So they also sold their goods in those regions, in those areas. And then they showed off their power to other countries. So this is the beginning of those characteristics of colonial rule. When they came in and started ruling in these different areas, this is how they did it. These are some of the things that they did. Okay, so be prepared for the questions during our live session.